What's up, guys? How are you? Welcome into a New Year's Day episode of the Daily Juice Podcast. My name is Matt Perrault. You guys can follow me across all of my socials at Sports Talk Matt. And we are here following a day where I don't know exactly what we did, but we won't have a winning day, officially at least, because of Alabama getting smacked. Alabama did not show up, so it was a bad handicap, bad bet for me, and Kellen DeBoer has got a big old problem on his hands. I was in Alabama for 5 years. I covered the Crimson Tide when they had Mike Dubose and Mike Shula, when they had Dennis Franchione as the head coach, all leading up to the hiring of arguably the greatest college football coach of all time. And Alabama became dominant. I was there when the Crimson Tide had multiple 4 and 5 loss seasons and how restless the fan base got. But that was after they went through a somewhat of a decent run. It wasn't like it was before. Like Nick Saban, Bear Bryant is Bear Bryant. They had some ups and downs, but they had some coaches that still kept things going, kept the train going, if you will. There wasn't 1992 still happened for Alabama. That isn't happening right now for the Crimson Tide. That was not a good performance for Alabama, and another loss on the first rookie campaign for Kellen DeBoer. Yes, here comes the recruits. Yes, here comes the NIL money for Alabama, but yikes, they got to lose to that Michigan team to score 13 points. Oh my. Now, college basketball was much better. If you took both games I told you last night on the Juice for the Richmond Spiders, I told you they were 0-5 at home, but a little birdie down here told me take Richmond plus 3.5. They won the game outright. And then Creighton got a huge win at home against St. John's. I had no clue what to make of that. That made no sense to me. I was like, why in the world? The Jays being a dog at home this year, look, they're going to struggle to win games on the road. But anytime they're getting points at home, you have to look at the Creighton Blue Jays. It's one of the most difficult places to play in the country. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but that number was wrong. St. John should not have been favored in that game. Jays win, Jays cover the +1. So 2-0 in college basketball if you took the 2-0 plays like I talked about on the Juice last night. But they weren't official, obviously. I bet them, but they didn't make them. I just made college football the official plays. And Penn State is kicking off here momentarily up against Boise State. We'll see how that game goes. I obviously have a lot going on that game with Penn State's laying the number with Penn State, taking the over, taking the team total for Penn State, playing over there. So I think Penn State scores. I think Drew Eller's going to have a big game, putting up big numbers here. I think this 53, the total, it's not going to stun me if Penn State scores 40 tonight. Okay, now it could be dead wrong. Maybe Penn State, can't score at all against Boise, but I watched Boise State. I watched a lot of Penn State. I just think this is a big old mismatch in the trenches on both sides of the football, and I don't think Penn State is going to have much trouble moving the ball themselves through the air. And frankly, I think there's just a couple of matchup nightmares for Boise State here tonight in the Fiesta Bowl. So we'll see how that game plays out. Hopefully we get the over correct and it goes a 1-1 day. If not, it's an 0-2 day, down a little over 2 units, and we head into Wednesday here on a New Year's Day with 3 games to break down in the college football quarterfinals. Now, we already have one bet in play here, guys, okay? We've already talked about the over for Oregon and Ohio State, over 54.5. Now, that number has moved to 55. That number is not gigantically moving, but it did move, and certain books are at 55.5 now, depending on what you're looking at, but we have 54.5. So we opened up at 52.5, now 55.5. I still think that bet is good. I like our number, but I don't hate 55. You can find the 55 and go over 55. I don't hate that either. 54.5 was the first number. Game went clearly over, and a 32-31 final. So I do lean towards Ohio State to win the game. I do think Ohio State is playing incredible football. So it's not going to shock me at all if Ohio State puts up a big number and Will Howard continues to throw the football the way he's throwing the football. Oregon will need to play a tremendous, tremendous game to beat Ohio State. Now, here is a theory that I had going into the college football playoff that we're going to see if it holds. I made the statement, and you can bet this if you want. It's too late for Boise State and for Penn State, but I said teams that played in the first round up against teams that did not play, that had a bye, that the first half number was something to look at. that the rhythm of playing playoff football at home and the confidence that will have come from winning a playoff football game at home will let those teams on a neutral start faster than teams that had the bye, that have to get used to the intensity and the speed of playing college football, playoff football. So that means Texas against Arizona State. That means Notre Dame up against Georgia. And that means the Ohio State Buckeyes up against Oregon. Ohio State first half is not a bad bet here tonight. So watch how Penn State starts against Boise. They get off to a really fast start. Maybe there's something to that theory about playing games at home and the way these teams are going to perform when they've already played a playoff game under their belt in the bye. I said it before. I didn't think the bye was always a great thing for certain teams like Boise. Don't think the bye helped all that much. I think the bye is going to be detrimental to them. And frankly, the same thing for Arizona State. I think the bye is going to be detrimental. You've allowed Texas to get a big win over Clemson at home, and now they get to go to Georgia, where tickets are not hard to get. There will be Longhorn fans there, but I think even Arizona State fans know what's about to happen here. Numbers 12 or 12.5, find the 12. I know Arizona State's 11-2 ATS. I know they've covered 6 straight games. I know they're 5-2 ATS. I know they have won games against Iowa State by 26, Arizona by 42 in their last 2 games. They beat BYU at home by 5. I know they're playing really, really well. But I just think that having Texas is a really bad matchup. I think defensively, Texas will slow down Scatterbo. I think they're going to have a tough time throwing the football without their number 1 wide receiver for Arizona State. I just think Texas has more talent. If you take away the Georgia losses, okay, they lost to Georgia by 15 and lost to Georgia by 3 on a neutral. Okay, you take away those 2 games. The only game that really jumps out where they didn't dominate was Vanderbilt on the road. Everything else, every other game, Texas has won by double digits. 14 over Clemson, 10 points over Texas A&M, 17 over Kentucky, 10 over Arkansas, 32 over Florida. Yeah, the Vanderbilt game comes in just one time. They won the game by 3. Beat Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma on a neutral by 31. You can come through all this. Beat Michigan by 19. You can say, Matt, how good is the SEC? We've seen Illinois beat South Carolina. We saw Michigan beat Alabama. I'll give you all that. But how good really is the Big 12? Okay, my answer to that would be, okay, so you beat Iowa State and you beat Arizona, and I like BYU. We were on BYU earlier last week, and Kansas State, Central Florida, Oklahoma State. Arizona State lost to Cincinnati. They lost to Texas Tech. I mean, how good are those teams really? I just think Texas is too good here. I think Texas wins the game by double digits. I'll lay the 12 points because I don't know how many points Arizona State's going to score, frankly. I think they could have a real tough time moving the football here, and they have to run the ball well to be effective. And frankly, Texas's rush defense is so damn good. 3.1 yards per rush given up. That's 8th best in the country. If Arizona State can't run the football, and you can't really throw on Texas either. They have the number 1 opposing yards per pass defense. Their secondary is so good. 5.4 yards per pass play, 157 yards per game given up through the air. That's 2nd best in the country for Texas. I can't touch the over or the under in this game from a total perspective because I don't think Arizona State scores. I think it's all Texas. In the Peach Bowl, Texas minus 12 for 1.1 units. And then lastly, I think this is just a hedge bet. Notre Dame now is plus 1.5 up against Georgia. What will happen with Carson Beck being done? Carson Beck is not going to even play at all in these playoffs. He's had surgery, and he's declared for the NFL draft. I was watching Todd McShay on his show, and he went in on Carson Beck, saying he's talked to scouts and he's talked to GMs and personnel people in the NFL, and they all think he made a massive mistake. They think he should stay in college. They think he should not come out, and I would agree with him. I'm not a huge Carson Beck fan. I know Stockton looks good, okay? He does. He can run the ball. He's stronger, more physical, but this is a massive moment. I think it would be stupid of us to not at least take a 1-unit hedge here and take the 1.5 and take the plus 1.5 points with Notre Dame against Georgia, just in case the kid throws up all over himself. Okay. We have a 6-1 ticket on Georgia to win it all. So we have some wiggle room here with that. And I think we have to do it just to protect ourselves here. Okay. It becomes a 5-1 bet for Georgia. That's still really good. If Stockton plays perfect and looks awesome and they're heading off to the national semifinals, I think if it's Penn State, I think Georgia with Stockton, if he plays well and beats Notre Dame, I think they will win. They will win that game. They will beat a Penn State team on the other side to get to the national championship game. And then we can talk about hedging and other times if we want, or just let it play out and see how the game goes with Georgia with a 5-1 ticket versus a 6-1 ticket. But that's how I'm going to do it. Okay. I'm going to take the 1.5 points. Heck, if Georgia wins by 1, we cash both bets potentially. I mean, so that's would be ideal. But I'm going to do a little bit of a hedge here, and I'm going to go in at plus 1.5 for Notre Dame tonight, taking on a very feisty Georgia team in the Caesars Superdome, in the Sugar Bowl, in New Orleans, where you have to think Georgia's going to have a big home field advantage. A lot of fans going down there. The Irish will travel, but Georgia knows New Orleans really well. And man alive, this is going to be a wild game to watch for this defense for Georgia. Which of the defenses will show up for Georgia in this game? Because they're going to need to play really well up against a running attack for the Irish that looked great last week. And so I'm very curious. Again, Notre Dame's defense could be the answer. I would lean towards the under in this game. Both these teams are so defensively focused. Georgia gives up 21.8 points per game, top 25 in the country. Notre Dame gives up 13.8. That's top 5 in the country. I would lean towards the under 45.5 in this one, but we're just going to take the plus 1.5 on a hedge for our 6-1 ticket on Georgia to win the national championship. All right. So plays for today on the first of the year as we start 2025 with 3 massive college football games. What else would we start with? Texas minus 12 for 1.1 units. The Irish plus 1.5 for 1.15 units, a hedge off of our Georgia future. And Ohio State, Oregon over 54.5, a bet we gave out about a week ago for the college football quarterfinals rather. We will have the college football semifinals set after New Year's Day. My name is Matt Perrault. I hope you had an awesome New Year's Eve into a New Year's Day. First of the year. Let's have a great year here in 2025. I'll go over everything like I mentioned yesterday. We'll do a full recap of 24 when I get back to Vegas coming up here in a couple of days. My name is Matt Perrault. You guys follow me across all socials at Sports Talk Matt every morning. It is the Daily Juice Podcast, wherever you guys get your podcasts.